Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. As I've been teasing you for the last couple of days, we have a very special guest joining us on the show today. Bryce Skaggs, three-time medal winner at Iowa State Wrestling Tournament in the class of 3A, runner-up at 160 in 2008, over 100 career wins, and he wrestled at NAIA Grandview for a few years at, I believe, 174 or 187, I think. What were you at, Bryce?
Yep, both 174 and 184. Yep.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. So, but Bryce is going to be joining us on the show today. I wanted to give all of you fans of wrestling an opportunity to hear us talk about the Iowa wrestling team as the NCAA tournament just finished up last weekend. Obviously, some good things came out of that. I think some disappointments as well. But overall, I want to talk about the season from this year and also talk about what we can expect next season. And as I don't trust my expert opinion on that situation, I brought in an actual expert who follows Iowa wrestling very closely, obviously very knowledgeable of the sport, has season tickets. So we have Bryce Skaggs to join us on the show today. Bryce, thank you for jumping on, man. I really appreciate it. How are you doing today, buddy?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm doing well. Doing well.
Awesome. And you follow Iowa wrestling pretty closely. How do you think this season went? Were you pretty happy with the overall outcome if you looked at it from a team perspective?
Yeah, I think injuries with Michael Kemmerer hurt obviously the very end, but I mean, you have ups and downs in the seasons. I think we wrestled well at the end. We really at the end we kind of got stuff together, and I mean, fourth doesn't sound great for Iowa, but it was pretty well. So.
Absolutely. I mean, the Michael injury was not ideal at 174. Obviously, having some other people kind of fill in there and wasn't, I think, what we expected. I was talking to, obviously, you're very familiar with Isaiah Smith. I'm talking to him as well, and he said that was kind of the big downfall of the team. If he would have been there, Iowa really had a better chance of potentially competing for that team title. Maybe not so much with how strong Penn State was, but do you think there was really a chance if he would have been around this season had Iowa? And Iowa had an opportunity to potentially compete for a team title?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he would have been top 5 at least, I would say. I mean, 174 is a tough weight class, but yeah, I think he would have been right there, would have helped out a lot. And with Stoll, if he was healthy more than what he was with the knee problem, and yeah, I think we would have been right there.
Yeah, man, Stoll put on a pretty gritty performance, getting a few wins in the NCAA tournament. I was pretty impressed by that. Was that kind of your expectation? Were you happy to see him get a few wins and honestly even qualify for the NCAA tournament because he didn't really perform overly great at the Big Ten tournament?
Yeah, I was really shocked by the Big Ten's not doing. I don't know. He just like he wasn't moving, wasn't being himself. And then at Nationals, really, man, he wrestled well. And then I mean, I guess he did in AA, but I don't know. He did as well as he could, I guess.
Absolutely. And kind of jumping back to, I think obviously the big winner of the weekend was Spencer Lee getting his second national title as a sophomore. What stood out about his performance? I've heard some rumblings that he was potentially sick later in the season that cost him a few of those wins. He got pinned for the first time in I think 15 years at Oklahoma State, I believe. So what were your thoughts on Spencer Lee's kind of end of season performance? Is that about what you expected? And is the sky the limit for this kid?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a stud. Like he was sick, and he faces. I guess I heard he had mono or whatever, and then he faces Piccinini from Oklahoma State. That I didn't know what to think about that, but I kind of knew that he had been sick, so he's still down, and then I don't know. I mean, he at Big Tens he looked great, and then he just kept that through nationals, and he looked like his old self again. So it was good to see.
Yeah, and what separates him? Is it his style of wrestling? Is it his energy consistently? Is he trying to dominate the opponent from start to finish? What about Spencer Lee makes him such a great wrestler?
Yeah, I think his early attacks, first period attacks, taking the guys down, and then he is fantastic on top with his tilts and all the stuff that he can do with like a bar arm and a wrist. It's incredible the stuff he does on top, turning the guys. It's crazy. But Yeah, that's easily the biggest thing is, if he can get out on top first period, he can be up 8-0 or, 10
Absolutely.
nothing. It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I watched the Big Ten final when he was facing off against, I believe, is a wrestler from Northwestern, and obviously Iowa fans were. If you were watching the basketball game, you were getting a little pissed off, and then it turned over to Spencer Lee, and then all of a sudden it was overtime, and he got taken down. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but nice to see him bounce back in the NCAA tournament, get that second national title. Do you think he can do the four-peat? I mean, that's kind of a big kind of legendary accomplishment for a collegiate wrestler. Do you think he has the ability to get that four-peat?
I think he could. I mean, what's his face from Northwestern? He's good. He's really good, Rivera. But yeah, I mean, this year I think he's just been off just because of his sickness. It seems like, his freshman year he was just a whole head above everyone else, and then that it seems like that time where he got sick has just kind of held him back a little bit, and then yeah, I really think he could, four Pete or
That'd be
be a four timer.
Yeah, that'd be incredible. I mean, personally, I like the way, I mean, watching some of his press conferences and stuff. I really enjoy the kid's attitude, and he's not focused on himself. He's entirely focused on the team at all times, even after winning a second national title. I mean, the kid didn't seem to be cocky at all. I mean, obviously, very confident kid. You have to be confident to be a national champion wrestler, but I love his aura and his attitude towards the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that too. It's nice to see, with Gilman a couple years back, the completely opposite style, and DeSanto as well as, it's a completely different, mindset that, I mean, after but I like seeing both really. It's nice to see both sides kind of. But
Definitely. And actually, you kind of touched on it already, but DeSanto, what is your thoughts on Austin DeSanto? I mean, I think he's a very polarizing wrestler. Personally, I love. I mean, I know it costs the team. That's never a good thing when you're costing the team points, and it hasn't been in situations where they really needed those points. But personally, I love the passion, and I know he's on the spectrum, so there's some things there. But what are your thoughts on Austin DeSanto? Do you think he lets his emotions control him too much, or do you think that emotional aspect really brings another level to his game?
yeah, I think it really helps him. But obviously he goes a little too much sometimes where you think, oh, you don't want, to lose the team points in certain positions where, it could be a close meet, and then but I like it. I like the fire, it brings I think it brings out more in him, and it's good to see at some level, but yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Sorry, my mic was on mute. My dogs are in the room, so
Mine as well.
awesome. Yeah, you gotta have the pups around, but nice. So I kind of jump into another weight class. Alex Marinelli, a guy who went into the NCAA tournament with the number one seed, a lot of high expectations, and to not finish even in that 1-2 match or even 3-4. What are your thoughts on his tourney run? Would you consider it a disappointment, and what kind of led to it? I feel like he just wasn't having a good weekend. But from your kind of expert opinion, what were your kind of thoughts on his approach to the NCAA tournaments?
Yeah, I think he wrestled well up until the match with the eventual national champ Lewis. He had I don't know, it's just like he ran into a brick wall with him, and then after that he just, lost confidence. You never know what's exactly going on in his mind. He wants a national title, so after he gets beat, he's not as focused on the next match, and it just doesn't mean as much. And yeah, I don't know. But up until that, he looked fantastic the whole year. And it just like the one guy just set him off to just, I think he easily could have came back and got third. He just wasn't as focused. And but,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that'd be. I haven't personally been in that position. Most of the sports I played are either team sports or sports that don't have kind of the wrestle backs that wrestling has. From your experience, I know in the state tournament and whatnot, you got second place that one year. The other years, though, you placed, I believe, fifth and seventh. I think I might have that incorrect, but obviously you had to do some wrestle backs there as well. What is your mindset going into that? Is it? I mean, it's got to be tough, right? Because you want to go in there. Your goal is to win a state championship or a national championship. But when you do lose, how hard is it to mentally reset and reprioritize and refocus on what your new goal is?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, just like any other sport, you gotta forget the last one. But in this case, it's that day. You gotta forget the last match and or like work on whatever you lost to the last match or whatever. Yet you can't think about the last one too much. You gotta be focused on winning at all costs. I mean, I don't know. It's tough. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Like I said, I've never been specifically in that situation, but I can just imagine if you have a very specific goal in mind and you don't get that goal and it's over, it can be kind of difficult to, like I said, reset and reprioritize. But from a team aspect, with this team, I think there's been a lot of chatter about the Brands brothers and kind of what they bring to Iowa wrestling, and I feel like maybe sometimes unfairly they get criticized for a lack of team success as of recent. What are your thoughts on them as coaches? Do you believe in them? Do you feel like they are the right choices? And do you believe there's much clout to that chatter?
Oh, I absolutely think they're the right coaches. They're the right guys. We have I mean, those two, and then with Morningstar's a next level recruiter. I mean, I guess he was the one that got Marinelli in, and uh, I think those guys are the guys. And I mean, with team success, it Penn State has just been recruiting like none other. The past what 5, 10 years or so, whatever. It's hard to beat them in recruiting. They get the best of the best, and we get some guys that we have to work on to be to get up to the top. And I don't know. I think they do. I think they do a fantastic job, and it show especially the lightweights. We get national champs. Some of the middle to upper weights seems like we don't get as much, but those two are obviously I don't know, focused on the lower weights more, I guess you could say. But yeah,
Absolutely.
they're
And
fantastic.
yeah, I mean you make a really good point. One thing I wanted to kind of pick out of there was you talked about Iowa getting kind of I would say probably the tier two recruits is a way of putting it. And it seems very Iowa-esque, right? Kirk Ferentz does that with his football team. Fran McCaffrey, so to speak, does that with the basketball team. And we're not getting the five-star recruits pretty typically. Is that a similar mantra with the wrestling team as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, seems like Penn State's getting not all, I shouldn't say that, but most of the good guys from in Pennsylvania, and we got Spencer Lee and let's see, Caleb Young, Kemmers from Pennsylvania. I mean, we're getting good guys out of Pennsylvania. Marinelli's from Ohio, but we need good guy. We're getting obviously still getting good guys from Iowa, but yeah, I think they're getting the best of the best, and we're getting I mean Spencer Lee is next level, but
I
um,
mean, I feel like he's an exception to anything
ex-
you're probably going to say with that.
oh yeah, for sure, yeah.
So that's interesting for me. Growing up in the state of Iowa, you typically think of Iowa State wrestling as one of the best states for wrestling. But the more and more I hear about it, it sounds like Pennsylvania is really the the heart and soul of high school wrestling. Is that an accurate statement, or where, if you had to rank probably the top five states for high school wrestling, what would they be? And I know that's kind of a random off the chart question. I'm just very curious because you talked about three or four guys that we've gotten specifically from Pennsylvania, and it doesn't seem like Iowa's wrestling is as up to par as Pennsylvania's, and that's also it's going to help Penn State considering that's right in their backyard. So where would you kind of rank them as far as states? What are some of the top states for wrestling?
Yeah, Pennsylvania is they got to be top three at least. New Jersey is they've kind of come on of late. Jordan Burroughs is from Jersey. They had like apparently they had the most top three finishers at nationals, and Ohio's right up there. Illinois, and then obviously, I mean, we just don't have near the numbers, near the population as some of those other states. But I mean, I still like to think we keep up, but we're not as high as Jersey and Pennsylvania. I'd say top two.
Absolutely, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, you make a really good point. Iowa has what 2.5 million people. It's a little bit harder to have the overall volume of solid wrestlers, but I think on a per capita basis, I would say Iowa is probably then pretty solid if that's what we're kind of basing it off of. That's kind of cool to know. Last kind of big thing I want to talk to you about is, what are the expectations for next year? We're only losing, I believe, two seniors from the starting rotation of wrestlers, right? What is your expectation? What are your expectations for next year? Do you think this is a team that could possibly compete for a team title next year?
I absolutely think we could, yeah. With Kimmer coming back, and then we bring in Tony Cassioppi. He'll be a redshirt freshman heavyweight. He had a heck of a had only two losses, 15, 18 wins or something like that. And he's going to be a stud. I hope, I think he'll All-American his freshman year, or should anyway, which would is going to help the team race when we're, fighting Penn State, I'm sure, again. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, it should be fun. Should be a good close team race as long as everyone stays healthy and on track, I guess. So
Yeah, and are there any other guys that are kind of sitting on on the bench that are kind of just waiting in the wings that you think could be maybe some sleepers for next year or some surprise wrestlers that could come out of nowhere? Are there any other guys that are kind of, at the forefront of your mind?
yeah, let's see, what's his name from? He just transferred from Nebraska. What in the what? No, oh, he transferred from. So we had a kid, Teasdale, Gavin Teasdale, transferred from Penn State. This like just well, I just saw like 2 days ago that he's gonna come to Iowa now. When he's gonna, I think he's a 33 pounder, and I don't know if he'll wrestle right away or not, but um. There was a different kid that transferred from
Is
Nebraska.
it Jason Renteria?
Renteria, there we go. Yep, yeah, he'll be. I don't know, I see he could move up to 41, possibly.
Yeah, because he kind of he's in Dos Santos weight class right now, right?
Yep, he's at 33. He Those two transferred like the same time, and it's so that was kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean he could move in there, or does Murin get better? In the off season, and he did well. He had what? He had two wins at nationals over,
Yeah, he actually had a pretty solid run, all things considered.
yeah, a couple tough kids. Yeah, I don't know anyone else. I guess Nelson Brands, he has a heck of a time fitting in anywhere, just because you have Marinelli, and then Caleb Young. He's at 65, 165. Nelson Brands is. Well, he can't. I mean, he's gonna have a heck of a time cracking the lineup. But I mean, if I don't know, I don't know if they're gonna move anything around as far as Nelson or Renteria, but if they did, I'm sure it'd be a tough lineup no matter what they do.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like there's some pretty exciting prospects coming down the pipeline for the Hawks. It'll be interesting to see kind of what happens with DeSanto and Renteria at that, 133, or Max Murin at 144. Real quick on DeSanto, just in case you know, how did he bypass transfer rules? Because typically you need to sit out a year. How did he manage to come in so quickly?
I don't know if were the transfer rules like
Are they the same?
are they I think they just passed something that it's like easier to transfer now, if that sounds right. I
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
know.
it looks like he was granted a release from his scholarship. So would that possibly be? how it works out.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Interesting. Yeah, I
like
know.
it.
Yeah, it works out well for Iowa. I thought that was really interesting. You don't typically see that in the collegiate level being able to wrestle right away. So thought that
Yep.
was pretty interesting. Well, hey man, I mean, are there any other things you kind of want to bring up? We're kind of running up to typical of the time of the show. Is there any other topics you wanted to discuss about Iowa wrestling, or any other thoughts you wanted to, kind of push out there? Obviously, we're kind of going on at my pace and my cadence with some of the questions I have, but I want to make sure you have a chance. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with Iowa wrestling? And obviously, I think as long as you enjoyed your experience here, we'll want to have you on the show, when we get closer to wrestling season next time. But for right now, is there anything that you wanted to bring up?
I don't think so. I think seems like we covered a bunch in the
Yeah,
little
man.
time that we did.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm learning a lot already. I appreciate you jumping on. It's been great. I hope the people that are listening to the show, when this airs tomorrow morning on Thursday morning, enjoy listening to your expertise in Iowa wrestling. I definitely enjoyed it. It was great to have you on the show and catch up with you. For those of you listening to the show, please make sure you are subscribing to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast at. And we have another awesome show coming at you tomorrow morning, giving you a preview of the women's basketball game against NC State. Want to make sure you understand what to expect in that game as the 2-seeded Iowa Hawkeyes take on the 3-seeded NC State. So we want to make sure we're giving you that. Make sure to tune in. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe, and make sure to follow the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast on Twitter at Locked On Iowa. And if you have Facebook, you can also follow us on Facebook at Locked On Hawkeyes. That will do it for our Thursday morning episode, though. Have a great day, Hawkeye Nation, and we'll be back tomorrow.